saying the same thing. Anyway, I have my chemo pump here. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and so I've done numerous rounds of chemotherapy. I've had the surgery that took away about a third of my pancreas, but I'm considered an outlier. The diagnosis for pancreatic cancer is the worst. The cancer continues to mutate, it wants to win, so chemo eventually stops working. But I'm considered an outlier. It's now, it'll be 2 years, I believe it's on the 21st, that I went into the hospital, went through emergency. So anyway, that's my present. But to start with, my father worked for PG&E, and in 1951, he transferred to Middletown. They decided to open a PG&E office in Middletown. And so at that time, of course, that was before Hidden Valley. Cobb was mostly vacation rentals rather than full-time. And he covered Middletown, Cobb, Lower Lake, there was no Hidden Valley, Clear Lake, and Clear Lake Oaks. And so he would get, middle of the night, if somebody's lights went out, they would call us. And oftentimes, my brother, or my mother, or myself would go with him. And it would be helpful, like he had to climb a pole, we could do a spotlight or whatever. When we originally moved here, like I say, it was 1951, I was 8 months old. We moved into what was the Al Newman house across from the museum there. I guess it was, from what my parents said, was in pretty rough shape. But my father he was always involved with the community and got to know the ranchers, got to know everybody. And he became friends with Sheldon Bell, who was the ranch manager out at Diamond D at the time. And so they were going to change the road and put in a new bridge at that time. We looked at the place that my parents were. And so Sheldon with Ralph K. Davies' permission, gave my father the house that they were going to just tear down. And he moved it across the street. He was able to buy, half acre or an acre from Bob and Mary Knowles. And anyway, he remodeled that house with the help of, who is it that had the motel? You remember? No, before Benson. Oh, John Randa. Yeah, John Randa. Anyway, John Randa built that motel as well. So some of the things growing up, like I say, there was no Hidden Valley. We would leave the house, whenever we were ready. We'd ride our bikes. We'd ride all over town. We'd meet up with friends. We could ride horses. What's now the Dan Terrell's facility there. Mm-hmm. That used to be Nellie Reed's drugstore. And the reason it was a drugstore is before he passed away, her husband was a pharmacist. But it turned out it was just like the Greyhound bus stop. It was a soda fountain. You could go in there and get ice cream sundaes, milkshakes, whatever. And we liked it because they'd hang comic books on a wire across the bar there, and you could sit there and read comic books. But that's where my father's office was, in the back of that building. So, and then my mother went to work there, so I spent a lot of time there, mostly sorting out comic books. But anyway, then I actually brought a shepherd's pipe. So the Haymans lived on the top of Rabbit Hill, and they were just great for the kids. They welcomed them. Anybody could go anytime. He did lapidary. I was going to bring a ring, but I forgot it. He made these pipes, and then Mary Elsing's father, Tom Corey, he was actually a cello player, and I think he played in one of the larger symphony orchestras. But I have the book of how to make these. I think it was dated 1941. But he made these for every kid in town that wanted them. And this is a soprano pipe. He also made the alto, tenor, and the bass pipe. And then I think it was Tom Corey and then his wife Ski that taught us to play those. Yes.
Will you tell them where Davis lived?
Top of Rabbit Hill. Yeah, top of Rabbit Hill. And so we had trails all over that hill, and they had this old station wagon, and they would just load up a bunch of us, and we'd go off and do things with them. We even went camping over at the coast, and we went on Bottle Rock Road and chipped out some bottle rock. That was the first time I'd seen bottle rock. Our Shepherd's Pipe group, we played the Lake County Fair, we played in the Middletown Days Parade. And then going back to my parents, once they moved here, they were so involved in the community. They joined the Eastern Star, the Masons. There just wasn't and of course my father was a volunteer fireman, and then in his later years he was I guess you call it on the fire board, a fire commissioner. But and then probably around the early 60s, there was a private ambulance service then. There was no Red Bud Hospital or Adventist Health as they call it now. So anyway, the ambulance company donated this ambulance, and it was probably a late 50s Cadillac. And my mother got her license to drive, and she'd only really drove to Lakeport and Santa Rosa, but anyway, I remember she had to take somebody to Oakland, and she drove that old Cadillac down there to Oakland. And then, for us as kids too, we volunteered with our parents. So one of the things that I remember doing was when the Sabin oral vaccine came out for measles. My job, and I was probably, I don't know, somewhere between 8 and 12 years old, they set up tables at the fire department, and I went along and put sugar cubes in these like cupcake holders, and then Dr. Joyce came down from Lakeport and put the drops of the polio vaccine on it. So it was kind of cool. And then, of course, Hidden Valley, I guess, was probably around, the late 60s, 67 or something like that Hidden Valley got built. And that really changed the dynamics for Middletown, because we were just, our own little community with Anderson Springs. But we've seen a lot of growth here, and I think we're going to see a lot of growth in the future. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer.
Thank
I'll
you.
turn you over to the Speaker of the House.